Hyunwoo stood outside the massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber. His hands were sweating. After 30 years of waiting, humanity finally had the chance to show the galaxy what they could do. Not with weapons or technology this time, but with something much more important. Something that made humans special. The doors opened with a soft hiss. The chamber was huge. Hundreds of alien beings sat in curved rows that went up to the ceiling. Hyunwoo had seen pictures, but being here was different. The Nexari looked like walking crystals that sparkled with inner light. The Kolith moved like one big creature, even though they were many small beings. The Valens had large heads and eyes that seemed to see right through him. So Young walked beside him carrying her violin case. She had practiced for months for this moment. Her hands were shaking a little, but her face was calm. Behind them, Tae-min carried his electronic equipment. He had spent 3 years writing the perfect piece of music, something that would show the galaxy that humans were not just another primitive species. Representatives of the Galactic Council, Hyunwoo said into the microphone. His voice echoed through the chamber. Today, humanity wishes to share our greatest cultural achievement. Music has been with us since the beginning of our history. It tells our stories, shows our feelings, and brings us together. Some of the aliens leaned forward with interest. Others looked bored. Velthar, the tall Nexari representative, was examining, his crystal claws like he had better things to do. So Young opened her violin case and lifted the instrument. The wood was old and beautiful, made by human hands over 200 years ago. She put it under her chin and raised the bow. The chamber became quiet. The first notes were soft and sad. They came from an old Korean song about missing home. Then, Taemin's electronics joined in, adding layers of sound that painted pictures in the air. The melody grew stronger, mixing classical European music with traditional Asian rhythms. It was everything humans had learned about music in thousands of years put into one perfect piece. For a moment, the chamber was silent. Hyunwoo felt hope growing in his chest. Then he heard it. A small sound from the Nexari section. A tinkling noise like broken glass. They were laughing. The sound spread through the chamber like fire. The Kolith began making a buzzing noise. That meant they found something funny. The Valens made high-pitched sounds that hurt human ears. Even the usually polite Zeridians were shaking their heads. Velthar stood up. His crystal body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns on the walls. "Honored Council," he said, his voice like music itself. "I must ask, is this truly what humans consider art?" More laughter filled the chamber. So Young stopped playing. Her face was red and tears were starting in her eyes. "This chaotic noise-making shows exactly why humans need our guidance," Velthar continued. "True music follows mathematical laws. It has order and purpose. What we just heard was random sounds with no structure. It is the musical equivalent of a child playing with broken instruments." Quentos, the wise Zeridian diplomat, spoke more kindly. Perhaps humans simply need more time to understand real artistic expression. Their attempt shows enthusiasm, if not skill. A Valen representative stood up next. Her large eyes glowed with a soft light. The emotional chaos in their sounds actually caused pain to our sensitive minds. How can they call something art when it hurts to experience it? Hyunwoo wanted to defend his people. He wanted to explain that human music was supposed to make you feel things, that the chaos was the point, that the mixing of different styles showed how humans could bring different groups together. But the words would not come. The laughter was too loud. Tae-min was staring at his equipment like it had betrayed him. He had put his heart into this music. Every note meant something to him. But to these aliens, it was just noise. Mireille sat in the human section, watching everything. She was supposed to be there as military support, but now she was studying the aliens. Her training had taught her to notice small details. While the aliens laughed, her instruments were picking up strange readings. The Nexari crystals were vibrating in unusual patterns. The Kolith drones showed brief breaks in their group connection. The Valen's brain scans showed activity in areas that were usually empty. Something was happening that the aliens did not want to admit. The council leader, An ancient being whose species had started the galactic government raised one of his many arms. The laughter stopped. "The Council has heard humanity's cultural presentation," he said. "While we appreciate the effort, it is clear that humans require significant development in this area. Therefore, we assign Earth to the cultural development track. They will receive guidance from our artistic experts until they can produce work suitable for galactic appreciation." The cultural development track. Hyunwoo knew what that meant. It was where they put species who were not ready for real membership, species who needed to be taught how to be civilized. It was embarrassing and insulting, but there was nothing he could do. So Young packed her violin with shaking hands. Tae-min gathered his equipment without looking at anyone. They had worked so hard, and for what? To be laughed at by beings who thought humans were primitive children. As they left the chamber, Hyunwoo heard the aliens still talking about the performance. Most of the comments were unkind. The Nexari called it mathematical nonsense. The Koloth said it broke harmony. The Valens called it emotional pollution. But Mireille was thinking about those strange readings. Why would the aliens react so strongly to something they claimed was just bad noise? Why did their bodies show signs of stress during certain parts of the music? Why did some of them look uncomfortable even while they were laughing? She made a note in her report. It might be nothing, it might be everything. But humans had learned long ago that the most dangerous enemies were the ones who said you were no threat at all. The galaxy had made a mistake today. They thought they knew what human music was. They thought they understood what it could do. But they had only heard the beginning, and they had no idea what was coming next. Back on Earth, the news of the failed presentation spread quickly. Most humans felt ashamed and angry. But a few, like Mireille, began to wonder if there was more to the story. If human music really was just noise. Why had the aliens worked so hard to make humans feel bad about it? Sometimes the best weapon is the one your enemy tells you is worthless. 6 months had passed since the disaster at the Galactic Council. Jin-ho still felt angry when he thought about it. He had been watching the broadcast from his lab on Mars, seeing his people get laughed at by aliens who thought they were better than humans. But now he had work to do. Mireille had given him a secret project. She wanted to know why the aliens had acted so strangely during So Young's performance. Why their bodies showed stress when they claimed the music was just bad noise. Jin-ho was not just a musician. He had been a military engineer before he started studying sound. He knew how to find patterns that others missed. His partner, Haewon, was one of the best xenobiologists on Mars. Together they were going to figure out what human music really did to alien minds. "Run the test again," Jin-ho said to Haewon. She was watching the monitors that showed the brain activity of their test subject. It was a Koloth drone who had volunteered to help with their research. The little creature sat quietly in the test chamber, its compound eyes reflecting the lights. Jin-ho started the music. It was a simple piece, just box mathematics mixed with some blues guitar. Nothing fancy, the kind of thing human children learned in school. On the monitor, Haewon watched the Koloth's brain patterns change. "Look at this," she said, pointing at the screen. "The connection to the hive mind is getting weaker," Jin-ho leaned over to see. The Koloth drones were always connected to their group consciousness. They never had individual thoughts. But during the music, something different was happening. The drone was starting to think for itself. "Stop the music," Haewon said quickly. Jin-ho turned off the sound. On the monitor, they watched the drone's brain patterns return to normal. The connection to the hive mind came back. But for a few minutes, the little creature had been alone with its own thoughts. "That should not be possible," Haewon whispered. They tried the test with other alien volunteers. A Valen scientist who was curious about human culture, a young Nexari who was studying on Mars, even a Zeridian diplomat who happened to be visiting. Every time, the results were the same. Human music did things to alien brains that should not happen. The Valen started feeling emotions instead of just reading other people's minds. The Nexari's crystal body began vibrating in patterns that made it stronger and faster. The Zeridians' usually calm thoughts became excited and creative. Sungmin, the team's physicist, ran the numbers over and over. "I think I understand what's happening," he said during one of their late-night meetings. "Human music operates on frequencies that match the natural patterns of consciousness itself. We evolved with music, so our brains learned to handle it. But other species evolved differently. They have no defense against what music can do." Jinho was starting to get excited. "You mean we can actually change how aliens think?" "More than that," Sungmin said. "Music might be able to rewrite their thought patterns completely." Haewon looked worried. "We need to test this more carefully. If music can do what we think it can do, then we're dealing with something very dangerous." They got their chance when Mirai sent them some prisoners, raiders from outside the galaxy who had been attacking human ships. Nasty creatures called Vortani who lived for violence and pain. The first Vortani they tested was a massive warrior covered in scars. It had killed 17 humans before being captured. The creature snarled and fought against its restraints, promising to tear the humans apart when it got free. Jinho played a piece he had been working on. It mixed traditional Korean drums with electronic music and some classical violin. Nothing that should hurt anyone. Just music. The change was immediate and terrifying. The Vortani stopped struggling. Its eyes became vacant and peaceful. When Haewon asked it simple questions, it answered in a calm, friendly voice. The creature that had promised to kill them was now asking if it could help with their research. "Turn it off," Haewon said, her voice shaking. When the music stopped, the Vortani returned to normal. It looked around in confusion, not remembering what had happened during the music. But for those few minutes, they had completely controlled its mind. "We need to call Mirai," Jinho said. They tested more pieces. Different styles had different effects. Classical music made aliens calmer and more cooperative. Rock music made them confused and unable to think clearly. Traditional folk music made them trust humans completely. Electronic music could put them into trances so deep they would do anything they were told. The most powerful combination was something Jinho called a neural storm. It mixed every type of human music into one chaotic piece. When they played it for a group of Vortani prisoners, the effects were so strong that 2 of the creatures fainted. The others just sat there, staring at nothing, their minds completely overwhelmed. But the strangest thing was that humans felt nothing. Jinho and his team could listen to the neural storm for hours without any problems. It was beautiful to them. Complex and interesting, but not harmful at all. "We're immune," Haewon realized. Millions of years of evolution with music has made us completely resistant to its mind control effects. While every other species in the galaxy is completely vulnerable, Sungmin added. They spent weeks testing different combinations and styles. They found that certain types of music could make aliens forget things. Other types could implant false memories. Some pieces could make enemies think humans were their best friends. And the neural storm could break alien minds completely, leaving them helpless and unable to function. "This is not just a discovery," Jinho said during their final report to Mirai. "This is a weapon, maybe the most powerful weapon any species has ever found." Mirai listened to everything over the secure communication link. She looked at their test results and watched videos of the alien subjects. When they finished, she was quiet for a long time. "Are you absolutely certain that humans are not affected?" she finally asked. "Completely certain," Haewon replied. "We've tested it on ourselves hundreds of times. Human brains process music differently than any other species we've found. It's like we have a natural shield." "Then we have a problem," Mirai said. "Intelligence reports show that the Nixari are planning to invade human space. They want to fix our cultural problems by force. They think we're too primitive to be left alone." Jinho felt his anger return. The same aliens who had laughed at human music were now planning to attack Earth because they thought humans needed to be civilized. "How long do we have?" he asked. 6 months, maybe less. Jinho looked at his team. They had discovered something incredible, something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. But now they had to decide what to do with it. "We need to develop this further," he said. "If the aliens want to attack us because they think we're weak, then maybe it's time to show them how wrong they are." The discovery was complete. Now it was time to build a weapon. General Kwang Ho read the classified report 3 times before he believed it. Music as a weapon. It sounded like something from a science fiction story, not a real military briefing. But the test results were clear. Human music could control alien minds in ways that no one had imagined. He called together his best people for a secret meeting. Yu Jin arrived first, carrying her tactical analysis files. She was known for finding weaknesses that others missed. Dong Hyun came next, the Army's expert on psychological warfare. He had spent years studying how to break enemy morale without firing a shot. "Tell me you're not joking," Yu Jin said after reading the report. "I wish I was," General Kwang Ho replied. "But we've confirmed everything independently. Human music really can rewrite alien thought patterns." Dong Hyun was already thinking about applications. "We could end wars without killing anyone, make enemies surrender before battles even start. This could change everything." "Or it could start the biggest war in galactic history," Yu Jin warned. "If other species find out we have this capability, they'll unite against us. They'll see us as an existential threat." General Kwang Ho nodded. "That's why this project is completely classified. We're calling it Project Resonance. Only the people in this room and a few selected specialists will know what we're really doing." He brought in Jin Ho to explain the technical details. The engineer-musician looked tired but excited. He had been working 20-hour days since the discovery. "We can create specific compositions for different tactical situations," Jin Ho explained. "Pacification music that makes enemies peaceful. Confusion pieces that scramble their decision-making. Loyalty songs that make them want to help us instead of fight us." "How long to create these compositions?" General Kwang Ho asked. "We need musicians who understand both the technical requirements and the artistic elements," Jin Ho said. "I recommend we bring in Yoonji. She's a master of traditional Korean instruments. And Jae Sung, he's one of the best electronic music producers on Earth." Within a week, they had assembled their team. Yoonji arrived from Seoul, carrying instruments that had been in her family for generations. Jae Sung came from the underground music scene in Tokyo, bringing equipment that could create sounds no one had heard before. They worked in a secret facility built inside an asteroid between Earth and Mars. The isolation was necessary for security, but it also gave them freedom to experiment without worrying about accidentally affecting civilian populations. The first piece they created was called Gentle Dawn. It was designed to make hostile aliens feel peaceful and cooperative. Yoonji played traditional Korean flutes while Jae Sung added electronic harmonies. Jin Ho used his engineering knowledge to tune the frequencies perfectly. They tested it on volunteer Vortani prisoners. The results were exactly what they hoped for. The violent raiders became calm and helpful. They answered questions honestly and seemed genuinely sorry for their past actions. When the music stopped, they returned to normal but remained confused about why they had felt so peaceful. "This is incredible," Yoonji said. "I never thought my grandmother's folk songs could be used like this." The second piece was more aggressive. Storm Confusion was designed to scramble enemy thinking during battle. It mixed chaotic jazz with electronic noise and sudden rhythm changes. When they played it for test subjects, the aliens became unable to make decisions or follow orders. They just stood there overwhelmed by the complexity. The third composition was the most powerful. Neural Storm combined every type of human music into one devastating piece. Classical structure, electronic innovation, traditional folk melodies, rock energy, jazz complexity, everything humans had learned about music in thousands of years. The effect on aliens was complete mental breakdown. They could not think, could not move, could not even remember their own names. It was like hitting their minds with a hammer. But humans who heard it just found it interesting and energetic. "We have a moral problem," said Soo Jin when she reviewed the project. She was the team's ethical advisor, responsible for making sure they did not cross lines that should not be crossed. "We're talking about using music, something beautiful and peaceful, as a weapon of war." General Kwang Ho understood her concerns. "Would you rather we use nuclear weapons when the Nexari attack, or conventional arms that will kill millions? This way, we can win without destroying anyone. But we're still controlling their minds. Sujin argued. We're taking away their free will. How is that different from slavery? Yujin had been studying intelligence reports. The Nexari aren't planning to give us choices, she said. They want to reorganize human society, replace our governments with their administrators, force us to abandon our primitive culture, and adopt their superior ways. They're not planning to ask permission. The debate continued for days, but it ended when new intelligence arrived. The Nexari invasion fleet was larger than expected. 3,000 ships carrying weapons that could destroy entire planets, and they were moving faster than predicted. We have 2 months, General Kwang Ho announced. Maybe less. The team worked frantically to create more compositions. They developed pieces for specific alien species. The Koloth were vulnerable to rhythmic patterns that broke their hive-mind connections. The Valens could be overwhelmed by emotional complexity. The Nexari's crystal bodies could be shattered by certain harmonic frequencies. They also created defensive pieces, music that could protect human minds from alien psychic attacks, compositions that could boost human morale and courage during battle, even pieces that could help humans coordinate better as a fighting force. Jae-sung discovered that human music could be layered in ways that aliens could not understand. They could hide multiple effects in a single piece. A song that sounded peaceful might contain hidden elements that would activate during combat, turning friendly aliens into allies. We're not just creating weapons, Jin-ho realized. We're creating a whole new form of warfare. The final test came when the team faced a group of Nexari prisoners. These were not raiders or criminals, but actual military officers captured during border skirmishes. Intelligent, disciplined, and completely confident in their superiority over humans. When they played Neural Storm, the results were even more dramatic than with other species. The Nexari officers, who had been mocking human, primitive noise-making just minutes before, collapsed completely. Their crystal bodies stopped glowing. Their perfect mathematical minds became chaos. Stop the music, Sujin said, her face pale. When the music ended, the Nexari slowly recovered, but they looked at the humans with new expressions. Fear, respect, and something that might have been awe. What did you do to us? One of them whispered. We shared our music, Jin-ho replied simply. The weapons were ready. Project Resonance had created compositions that could end the war before it started. But General Kwang Ho knew they would only get one chance to use them. Once the galaxy learned what human music could do, everything would change forever. We need a field test, Yujin said. A real combat situation where we can see how these weapons work under actual battle conditions. The opportunity came sooner than expected. The Valens sent a request for human assistance. A pirate fleet was attacking their trade routes, and their own forces could not stop them. It was the perfect cover for testing Project Resonance in real combat. Prepare the fleet, General Kwang Ho ordered. It's time to see if our music is as powerful as we think it is. Admiral Bora stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride, watching the pirate fleet through the main screen. 47 enemy ships spread across the asteroid field, their weapons powered and ready for battle. The human fleet had only 12 ships, and they were smaller than most of the pirate vessels. Any other admiral would have called for reinforcements. But Bora had something the pirates did not expect. Something they would never understand until it was too late. Enemy fleet is moving to attack positions, reported Lieutenant Hyorin from the communications station. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. The usual pirate demands, surrender or die. Let them come closer, Bora said calmly. We want them confident. The pirate fleet was led by Tekmor, a Grimani warlord known for his brutality. His species was large and violent, with thick armor-like skin and multiple arms. They had been terrorizing Valen trade routes for months, and their success had made them careless. Human ships. Tekmor's voice boomed across the communication channels. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now, and we might let some of you live as slaves. Bora smiled. Lieutenant Hyorin, are our special systems ready? All musical weapons are loaded and ready, Admiral, Hyorin replied. She was one of the few people on the ship who knew what they were really carrying. To the rest of the crew, the new equipment was just advanced psychological warfare technology. The pirate ships moved closer, forming an attack formation. They were clearly planning to destroy the human fleet quickly and take whatever cargo they could find. It was a standard pirate tactic, fast, brutal, and usually effective. "Begin with Gentle Dawn," Bora ordered. Hyorin activated the first composition. Through hidden speakers built into the ship's hull, music began to flow across space. To human ears, it was beautiful. Traditional Korean melodies mixed with peaceful electronic harmonies. But the effect on the pirate fleet was immediate. The Grimani ships began to slow down. Their attack formation started to fall apart as individual captains became confused and peaceful. Several ships actually stopped moving completely, their crews overcome by feelings they had never experienced before. "What's happening to them?" asked Commander Minho, Bora's second-in-command. He did not know about Project Resonance, but he could see that something unusual was affecting the enemy. "Classified technology," Bora replied. "Just watch." But not all the pirates were affected equally. The Grimani were tough and aggressive, and some of them fought against the music's influence. Thekmor's flagship began firing, its weapons cutting through space toward the human fleet. "Switch to Storm Confusion," Bora ordered. The music changed. Now it was chaotic and complex, jazz mixed with electronic noise and sudden rhythm shifts. The effect on the pirate fleet was devastating. Ships that had been firing in coordinated patterns suddenly began shooting in random directions. Some vessels started attacking each other as their crews became unable to tell friend from enemy. Thekmor's voice came over the communications again, but now it was confused and angry. What are you doing to us? My crew, they can't. The weapons won't target the flagship with Neural Storm," Bora commanded. This was the most powerful weapon in their arsenal. The music that flowed toward Thekmor's ship was everything humans had ever learned about sound and rhythm and harmony, all compressed into one overwhelming experience. The result was immediate and total. Thekmor's ship stopped firing. Its engines shut down. On the communications channel, they could hear the Grimani warlord making strange sounds. Not words, just confused noises like a lost child. Across the pirate fleet, ships were surrendering. Their crews had been reduced to helpless confusion by music they could not understand or resist. Only the humans remained unaffected, watching in amazement as 47 enemy vessels gave up without firing another shot. "This is impossible," Commander Minho whispered. "What kind of weapon can do this?" Bora decided to tell him the truth. He would find out eventually anyway. "Music," she said simply. "Human music." Minho stared at her. "Music? You mean like songs? The most powerful weapon any species has ever developed," Bora said, "and we didn't even know we had it." The battle was over in less than an hour. The pirate fleet surrendered completely, their crews begging for mercy in languages the humans could barely understand. When boarding parties went to secure the enemy ships, they found pirates curled up in corners, crying or staring at nothing. Thekmor himself was found on his command bridge, sitting in his command chair like a lost child. The terrifying warlord who had destroyed dozens of ships was now asking human soldiers if they could help him find his way home. "The music," he said over and over. "The beautiful, terrible music. How do you live with such sounds in your heads?" The Valen fleet commander, Lysandra, arrived 3 hours later to inspect the captured pirates. She had expected to find a battle zone with destroyed ships and dead bodies. Instead, she found an intact pirate fleet with crews that seemed to have lost their minds. "How did you do this?" she asked Bora during their private meeting. "Classified human technology," Bora replied. "Psychological warfare methods." Lysandra's large eyes glowed with suspicion. "I've never seen psychological warfare that could affect an entire fleet instantly. My people are experts in mental manipulation, and we could never achieve results like this." Bora kept her expression neutral. Humans have always been good at finding new ways to solve problems. But Lysandra was not satisfied. Her species had telepathic abilities, and she could sense that Bora was hiding something important. There's more to this than you're telling me. The pirate crew show signs of neural restructuring. Something changed their brain patterns at a fundamental level. I can only tell you that we used non-lethal methods to end the conflict quickly, Bora said. Isn't that what matters? After the Valens left, Bora sent her report to Earth. The field test had been a complete success. Human musical weapons worked even better in real combat than they had in laboratory conditions. The pirates had been neutralized without a single human casualty and without destroying any enemy ships. But the report also included a warning. Lysandra suspected that humans had developed something beyond normal technology. If the Valens started investigating, they might discover the truth about human music. And once that secret was out, every species in the galaxy would want to know how humans could control minds with songs. We need to be ready for the next phase, Bora concluded in her report. The galaxy is going to start asking questions. And when they do, we need to decide how much truth we're willing to share. News of the human victory spread quickly through galactic communication networks. The same species that had mocked human music 6 months ago were now talking nervously about humanity's mysterious new capabilities. Military experts tried to analyze what had happened, but without understanding the role of music, they could only guess. The Nexari invasion fleet, still moving toward human space, received reports about the pirate battle. Their commanders were confused and concerned. How had 12 small human ships defeated a much larger enemy force so easily? What weapons did humans possess that could end a battle without apparent violence? For the first time, some Nexari officers began to wonder if they had underestimated humanity. But it was too late to stop the invasion. The fleet was too large and had traveled too far to turn back now. The Nexari would continue toward Earth, not knowing that they were walking into a trap built from melodies and rhythms and the deepest secrets of human culture. The galaxy was about to learn what human music could really do. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the largest gathering in the organization's history. Representatives from every member species filled the Great Chamber, and their war fleets waited in orbit around the Council station. The Nexari had demanded this meeting after reports of humanity's impossible victory over the pirates spread throughout the galaxy. Yun Wu walked into the chamber again, but this time everything was different. 6 months ago, he had been a nervous cultural ambassador, hoping to impress the galaxy with human art. Now he was part of a military delegation that included Admiral Bo Ra and General Kwang Ho. Behind them came the research team that had discovered humanity's greatest secret, Jin Ho, Haiwan, and Min Ho, who had become the galaxy's first combat musician. The aliens were not laughing now. They watched the human delegation with expressions of suspicion and fear. Word had spread about the pirate fleet that surrendered without explanation, about enemy crews found crying like children, their minds broken by unknown weapons, about human ships that could end battles in minutes without firing conventional weapons. Zilthara, the supreme harmonist of the Nexari Empire, stood at the center of the chamber. Her crystalline body was larger and more complex than other Nexari, sparkling with inner light that showed her anger. Around her, 3,000 Nexari warships waited in space, ready to cleanse the galaxy of what they saw as a human threat. "Members of the Council," Zilthara began, her voice like perfect music, "we face a crisis that threatens the foundation of galactic civilization. The humans have developed weapons that violate every treaty and law we have established. Mind control, devices that can break the will of entire fleets, technology that turns brave warriors into helpless victims." Murmurs of agreement came from around the chamber. The same aliens who had mocked human music now spoke of humans as a dangerous threat that needed to be stopped. "We demand that humanity surrender these psychic weapons immediately," Zilthara continued. "If they refuse, the Nexari Empire will take action to protect the galaxy from this menace." Velthar, the Nexari representative who had mocked So Young's violin performance, stood up. "6 months ago, we laughed at human attempts at culture. Now we see that their primitive noise-making was a cover for developing the most dangerous weapons in galactic history. They have betrayed our trust and must face the consequences." Hyunwoo stood up slowly. This time he was not nervous. He had truth on his side, and he had learned that truth was the most powerful weapon of all. "Honored representatives," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "You speak of weapons and mind control. You demand that we surrender. Technology that violates galactic law. But you are wrong about everything." The chamber erupted in angry voices. How dare the humans deny what everyone had seen? How could they claim innocence when the evidence was so clear? General Kwang Ho raised his hand for silence. "We are prepared to demonstrate our weapons for the Council. But I warn you, what you are about to see may change how you think about humanity forever." "We demand to see these psychic devices," Zilthara said. "Show us the technology that can break minds, and we will judge whether it violates galactic law." Hyunwoo smiled. "Very well, Daeun, please prepare your demonstration." A young woman stepped forward carrying traditional Korean drums. Behind her, Minho set up electronic equipment that looked like nothing more than musical instruments. Se-yeon, a vocalist who had trained specifically for this moment, stood beside them with no equipment at all, except her voice. The aliens leaned forward, expecting to see advanced technology. Energy weapons or psychic amplifiers or mind control machines. Instead, they saw 3 humans with simple musical instruments. "This is ridiculous," Veltar said. "Do they think we are fools? Where are the real weapons?" "You are looking at them," Hyunwoo replied. Daeun began to play her drums. The rhythm was ancient, older than human civilization. It came from the earliest days when humans gathered around fires and shared stories through sound. Then Minho added electronic elements, creating layers of harmony that painted pictures in the air. Finally, Se-yeon began to sing, not words but pure emotion expressed through the human voice. The effect on the council chamber was immediate and overwhelming. Some aliens fell into trances, their minds unable to process the complexity of human musical expression. Others began to experience emotions they had never felt before, as the music unlocked parts of their consciousness that evolution had sealed away. The Kollith drones suddenly stopped moving in unison. For the first time in their species' history, individual drones began to think independent thoughts. The Valens, who normally lived in a world of psychic noise, found themselves experiencing pure emotional clarity. The Zeridians discovered creativity and wonder that their logical minds had never known. But the most dramatic change was in the Nexari. Velthar's crystal body began to vibrate in patterns that made him stronger and faster than he had ever been. His perfect mathematical mind was suddenly flooded with chaotic beauty that he could not understand but could not resist. As the music continued, some aliens began to weep. Others laughed with joy they had never known. A few actually began to evolve, their rigid biological systems forced to adapt to new ways of thinking and feeling. Zilthara herself was crying, actual tears flowing from her crystal eyes. "Stop," she whispered. "Please, stop the music." But the music continued. This was not the neural storm that could break minds completely. This was something gentler but more profound, a complete expression of human musical heritage from ancient drums to modern electronics to the pure emotion of the human voice. When the performance finally ended, the chamber was completely silent. Every alien representative sat in stunned amazement, trying to understand what they had just experienced. Hyunwoo stepped forward again. "You asked to see our weapons," he said quietly. "What you just heard was human music, the same music you laughed at 6 months ago. The same primitive noise-making you said showed how much humans needed your guidance." Velthar stared at him with new understanding. "The violin performance," he whispered. 6 months ago? That was a weapon?" Hyunwoo asked. "No, that was art. What you just experienced was also art. We did not develop music as a weapon. We developed it as a way to share beauty and meaning and connection. The fact that it affects your minds so powerfully is not our fault. It is simply what music does." General Kwang Ho stepped forward. "For millions of years, humans evolved alongside music. It shaped our brains and our culture and our way of understanding the universe. We became immune to its more extreme effects because we learned to live with it. But other species followed different evolutionary paths. You have no natural defense against what music can do to consciousness itself. The council leader raised one of his ancient arms. Are you saying that every human has this ability? Every human carries music in their hearts, Yunwu replied. We sing to our children and dance at our celebrations and create melodies to express what words cannot say. What you call a weapon, we call the essence of being human. Zilthara was still crying, her crystal tears sparkling in the chamber's light. We came here to destroy you, she said. We brought 3,000 ships to cleanse the galaxy of what we thought was a terrible threat, but you are not threatening us with weapons. You are sharing your souls. Music is not a weapon, Seyon said, speaking for the first time. Music is how humans touch the infinite, how we connect with each other and with the universe itself. If it has power over your minds, that power comes from truth and beauty, not from any desire to harm. The chamber erupted in discussion as alien representatives tried to understand what they had learned. Some were frightened by the implications. If humans could control alien minds with their art, what did that mean for galactic civilization? Others were fascinated by the possibilities. Could they learn to appreciate human music? Could it help them evolve beyond their current limitations? But slowly, something unprecedented began to happen. One by one, the alien representatives began to applaud, not because they fully understood human music, but because they finally realized what they were dealing with. Humanity had not developed a weapon. They had evolved alongside one of the fundamental forces of consciousness itself, and they had learned to use that force not for destruction, but for creation, for beauty, for connection. The Council recognizes humanity as the galaxy's first harmonic civilization, the Council leader announced, a species whose cultural achievements represent a strategic resource of immeasurable value. We formally request cultural exchange programs and musical education opportunities. Zilthara stood up, her voice still shaking from the emotional impact of the music. The Nexari Empire withdraws its invasion fleet. We wish to learn from humanity instead of fighting them. Perhaps you could teach us how to hear what you hear in your music. Hyunwoo looked around the chamber at the same aliens who had mocked human music 6 months ago. Now they regarded humanity with awe and respect and healthy fear. They understood that humans possessed something beyond technology or weapons. They had art that could touch the very foundations of consciousness. We would be honored to share our music with anyone who wishes to learn, Hyunwoo said. But remember, we warned you that music was